Hey there, tall, small, and in the walls. I am Ashlynn. Evidently, according to the polls, you all had some questions to ask me. To be honest, I thought Ray was going to eke this one out, but it looks like he'll have to wait his turn. Also, before we get started, I wanted to thank you all so much for your amazing questions and the love you've shown to our stories. It means so much to me and to Soren, though he probably won't admit it openly. So, without further ado, on to some quick response questions. First one, any relatives? Yes, actually, I have my parents, both sets of grandparents, and one younger brother, which covers the next question about whether or not I have any siblings. I also have a couple of cousins, but they live on the opposite sides of the country, so I don't really get to see them that often. We're not all that close anyway. I used to be close to my brother, used to see him a lot. We were really tight, but not as much anymore. My parents ended up getting divorced, and I tried to spare my brother some tough lessons by telling him something different than what actually ended up happening with my parents. Kind of resents me for it now, after my dad ended up coming back with his new wife and son. But I don't want to ruin the mood right out of the gate. So on to the next. Siblings, yes, one younger brother and technically one younger half brother. Family before the first book touched on it, but yeah, I grew up with both my parents and a younger brother since we were close. After my dad divorced my mom, I was old enough to make some poor decisions of my own. I ended up moving out when I turned 18 because of the family dynamics and basically ended up being a bum magnet. The guy who I was with before, Soren, Jordan was his name. He wasn't great for me. I thought that night when I found Soren that I had lost every bit of family or romantic attachment in my life. But as it turns out, I ended up getting the best family imaginable. sorry, just sappy moment. Favorite pastimes. I wish I could say I had interesting hobbies, but I don't really know if I have any interesting pastimes. I have favorites, obviously. I like watching shows, helping the boys with their projects, and supporting them wherever I can, and going on walks. I know, kind of boring. I like it when Soren and the whole family can come with me, like on the walks, but alone I can think and take a breath to evaluate what I'm doing and if I'm on the right track. Quirks. I mean, I have a lot of quirks. Soren pointed this one out to me later, but apparently I like to stir 9.5 times around like the edge of the cup when I'm mixing sugar into my coffee or tea. I guess I lead the stairs with my left foot, but I'm right-handed. I used to chew the tops off of pens until I accidentally lost a tooth doing it. This was one of those habits when I was really young. I chomped down on a pen on a tooth that I didn't know was loose. Scarring childhood moment. I still nibble on the ends of pens when I'm not paying attention, but it's one of those subconscious things I do. Least favorite has to be spiders and snakes. I also think that my least favorite things are dishonesty and cheaters. Also, crunchy peanut butter. Definitely do not like it. I know. Hate me all you want. I will die on that hill. Creamy is the way to go. Dreams. Okay, I like this one. Dreams. One dream of mine is to own a home and have a good work-life balance. I just want a good life for myself and the boys. A dream of mine is to help Dorian's music take off, for Ray to be able to do all sorts of inventing and be able to design more. He's been experimenting with stuff. Theo seems to be helping on that front. And Soren, I definitely have some dreams on that front. All of them. They deserve so many good things in life after everything. I don't want to spoil too much since I know you're still learning about our story, but let's just say we are making dreams come true. Fears. Ooh, I don't like that one as much. I think we all have fears that might seem cliche, but I do have a fear of drowning. More than that, though, is my fear of, losing my family, and I'm not really proud of this one here, but I'm afraid of losing my temper. I used to have one when I was with Jordan. And it flared up just for a moment when Soren told me he wanted to leave way back when. This was right before I found out how to help Soren's leg with the whole water therapy thing. I ended up finding someone to talk to for a while, and I got a lot of things figured out. So there's that. Ooh, you guys are getting some deep ones here. Childhood memories. I have loads of them, but I think one of my favorites is swinging on this old tire swing we had in the yard. We lived in this neighborhood that had a little bit of land, so we had this tire swing in the front yard that you could use. While swinging, you could be completely weightless and look out across some of the other neighborhood yards. Seeing the sunset over those trees was priceless. When did I realize I liked Soren romantically? Ooh. He's going to get embarrassed about this one. This is a really good question. I would have to say it was 2 nights after I left the apartment and knew I wouldn't, or couldn't make it back anytime soon. But it wasn't a complete romantic feeling at that point. It was just this intense longing and aching in my chest. I wasn't ready to say goodbye. I wasn't ready to leave, but between finances and a bunch of other stuff, I ended up having to leave. And then they were doing a bunch of stuff on their own, so they couldn't leave. It wasn't until about a month or so after I hadn't seen them that it all really hit me. I was actually on a date with a guy, and it was really obvious that this guy wasn't half as interesting as Soren. And no, it wasn't just because Soren is a borrower and that we had this kind of trauma bonding thing when we first met. It was our conversations while he was getting better that I really started to learn about his perspective and his outlook on life. It was his commitment and his focus that really inspired me. Yeah, that's the right way to say it. Inspired me. And it was watching his walls come down after Ray and Dorian revealed themselves when they were hurt that I really got an idea of his character and what mattered to him. Because for the longest time he just kind of had these walls up and he would give short form answers. I was kind of teasing it out of him eventually. But yeah, seeing all of that come down all at once and seeing his character all at once, that was really special. And that was kind of one of those sparking moments. Oh, I really like that quality about him. There's a lot I like about him, obviously, but he's smart and funny, creative. He's so dedicated to his family. I mean, he's also athletic and brave. Honestly, I've never met anyone who has all of these awesome qualities, and well, that's why I love him. It doesn't hurt that he's cute too, and a bit of a snuggle bug. Ashlynn. What? You are? Okay, moving on. Favorite things about the boys. Oh my goodness. A little bit of everything. Soren, okay, I kind of touched on this a little bit, but there's so many things that are my favorite about Soren. He's strong, physically and emotionally, caring, brave, thoughtful, protective, loving. He's completely dedicated to his family, but he'll also help anyone who really needs it. I could go on for days, honestly. He's just the ultimate guy. You can't change my mind about that. Dorian. For Dorian, I love how creative and talented he is. I don't think you understand how musically gifted Dorian is. Seriously. He's also very thoughtful and caring. He's definitely more forgiving than a lot of people, including me. Especially after we had our little talk about him thinking I abandoned them. I can't even begin to say how sorry I am about that. Dorian is also really loyal to his friends and family, which, again, I love about him. Ray is incredibly curious and innovative. As good as Dorian is with music, Ray is good at inventing and tinkering. He has a knack for looking at things and finding a use for them. Like those little, what do you call it? Whiteout pens. Yeah, no. Wait. No, it's the whiteout tape. Those gears on the inside. I hope you know what I'm talking about. He actually started making his own elevator system using a collection of those gears and stuff. He's always tinkering with something or another, and I love that he's always willing to try something new. He doesn't scare easily either. Like his oldest brother, he has this thing where he can keep control over his emotions and act on pure instinct. It's like he can flip a switch and hone in all of his focus all at once. I definitely wish I had that quality. Oh, Maisie. Oh, she is such a doll baby. And I don't mean that just because she's little. Maisie is developing a personality, and I love watching her explore and grow into who she's going to be. I see so much of Soren in her already. She's definitely going to be a formidable force when she's older. But for now, I love her fascination with the world and her sense of humor. I don't know what it is about little kids, but they find the silliest things funny. And I love listening to her laugh. For Hero, ooh, I like this one. For Hero, I love how loving and caring his heart is. He learned a hard lesson recently, but the fact that he has such a big heart and sees such good in people is something I wish I could have had growing up. He's so brave and trusting too. I also love how much he likes helping others, just altruistic to the end. Like, oh my goodness. On to the next. Oh, favorite movie. Oh, my favorite movie, show. Ooh, really good question. My favorite show is probably Grey's Anatomy, or one of those like true crime shows. I've been listening to more podcasts recently. I recently got into some renovation channels too. They're on YouTube to help with my career. Hero and Ray. Oh, you want to know Hero and Ray's and Dorian's favorite shows? Oh, okay. For Ray and Hero, they both probably have How to Train Your Dragon as their favorite. But Ray is also really interested in the behind-the-scenes stuff on like how things are made. I'm thinking about getting him into that one show, Mythbusters. I think that's what it is. Yeah, Mythbusters. Just because they go into the science and inventing and like talk about all the science behind stuff. So I think he's really going to get into that show. Dorian is a sucker for musicals recently. Don't tell him I told you. Next. Ooh. Okay. Getting a little bit more personal questions. Has Ray ever accidentally called me mom? No, Ray has never accidentally called me mom. Ray is a better person to ask about it, but I've kind of seen him as more of a younger brother, and me as this like weirdly overprotective like older sister, with like motherly tendencies. I think we all have like one of those friends who has like, oh, like you're the oldest sibling, but you're also a mom. You also have like, you keep all the stuff in your purse. You're the go-to person whenever you need like, oh, like, you need safety pins. Yeah, I got it. It's like a mom thing to do. So as weird as it is, I feel more like a sister, like an older sister with kind of these protective tendencies over Ray and Dorian and the boys. Except for, Soren, but that's a different story. Do I see Ray, Dorian, and Maisie as my kids? This ties into what I was just talking about. Yes and no. Which I know is kind of a weird answer. I definitely see Maisie more in that role of being more of a daughter than Dorian and Ray. The boys are like little brothers to me, if that makes any sense. Sure, they were really young, like when we met. I think they were like 7 and 8 at the time, I think. But I've always like roughhoused with them and like been there with them. I think, or I'd like to think I'm more like an older sister. Yeah. After evaluating, yeah, definitely more of an older sister. Just curious. Next, on to the next question. Just curious. Have I ever had to comfort Ray or Dorian or even Soren after a nightmare or anything, pre and post moving? Ooh, okay. Excellent question. Actually, yes. Early on, when they were still living in the other apartment, this was all the way back, Dorian and Ray both had a hard time coping with their father's passing. Mostly it was Ray who struggled just because he has this like big caring heart, but like Dorian like tried and failed to like suffer in silence, and he ended up really opening up and like blossoming more into his like who he is now. They ended up individually coming and talking to me like independently from one another. It helped Ray and I get really close because in a way I guess I did feel that motherly role that he had been missing. But again, more like that older sister motherly role thing. I remember like it was yesterday. It was on like this really kind of stormy night, and Ray was kind of having this like night terror. He told me later his terror was a blend of like being caught in his imagination, like filling in the gaps of like what actually happened to his father. This happened like a month or so after they started coming back and like seeing me again. But yeah, Ray was having a hard time because he was, I guess, putting himself in that mental position of like remembering and seeing like what his dad might have gone through, like from that first person perspective, and that really freaked him out. And then for Dorian, he dozed off watching a movie. Soren was helping Ray like get some stuff together. They forgot back at home they were going to sleep over, so they went back to the walls to get some stuff. When Dorian started having a nightmare, and he never told me what that was about, but I had to shake him awake and kind of snap him out of it. And then we just kind of like sat there and he let me comfort him. It was really nice that he, even after having this nightmare, even after going through all of this like traumatic experience, he was still able to trust me. I guess I had kind of like earned it at that point. Yeah. Post moving, the boys, with like Soren's and my help, they didn't have any nightmares like once we had moved into the big apartment with the borrower community. At least they didn't have nightmares that they talked to me about. Like they, at this point, like since they're a little bit older now, they've learned like more coping mechanisms, and like even though like they can definitely come and talk to me about it whenever they want, they are kind of like trying to grow into the men they want to be, and so they're trying to like tough it out. We all know there's little squashmallows though. Soren did tell me that later, after I had first left, after like those long expanses of time, that sometimes in their dreams, like the whole sleep talking thing, they would actually call out for me, which I thought was really sweet, and definitely heartbreaking. As for Soren, actually, I was able to comfort him when I first found him. It was he was having this like fever dream that was going on, and that's whenever I first found out that he could talk. I had bandaged him up, all that other good stuff, and yeah, I heard him, you know, it's like saying no, like talking about Dorian and Ray. It was like just these like little broken fragments, but in a way I guess I was able to comfort him, and realize, like, in that moment, whenever he was, like, going through that whole experience, that he was not just kind of he wasn't some kind of experiment gone wrong. He was an actual person. And so that really struck me, because, like, you have, dogs and cats and everybody else, like, they have dreams, and they, twitch and thrash in their sleep. But to vocalize it, to be able to hear and understand, it's like that felt so human in that moment. Which actually, that's part of, I think, a bonus chapter. So if you'd be interested in getting a hold of that, definitely let our creator know. Okay, another question. What made Soren go back to see me 2 months later? Was there a reason, or did he just miss me and disregard what he thought before leaving? Did he go visit more often after? Was it a secret? Ooh, so this is when they left the first time, when Dorian and Ray were really, really young, and after Soren had gotten better, and after they had lost their father. Wow, excellent question. Okay, the long and the short of it was that Soren missed me, and I missed him. Soren told me this later, but after 2 months of training his brothers and regaining this sense of purpose that he feared he would lose if he stayed with me, he realized that he missed our conversations more than he originally anticipated. And I did too, obviously, but I wasn't going to go, like, start tearing down the walls to, like, to try and, find them to have a conversation. I didn't want to be that kind of person. They taught me how to not be that kind of person. Soren said that there was this, like, kind of gap, and it can only be filled with us being together, and I felt that too. I mean, we were kind of a significant part of each other's lives during this, like, traumatizing time in both of our lives. So in short, yeah, Soren told me he did disregard this rule to have that, like, one more conversation with me, just to, like, see if that was the sensation that he was missing, if that hole could be filled with that. And it was. And that one more conversation ended up becoming more frequent visits. And initially it was, like, a mild secret from the Bobbins. Definitely. Dorian and Ray did not know that Soren was actually coming down to see me. He wanted to go back and talk to me while keeping his brother's training pure. That's how he phrased it, pure. He didn't want his brothers to essentially, like, become reliant on going and asking me for help when things got difficult for them. So, like, you almost have to train your body to go through these, like, long stints without, like, having food or, like, needing water. You need to be able to push yourself to all of your limits to know, like, where they are. And he wanted to make sure, like, he didn't want his brothers to suffer, but he also wanted to make it clear that they couldn't just, we'll just go pop down to the human who we know and get what we need, and then we'll be fine. Like, you have to, like, learn that kind of coping. But after 3 or 4 visits, Soren realized his brothers were also missing me. So as much as he had been missing me and came down and, like, started talking to me, that his brothers were also missing me. And he definitely emphasized, like, their training and gave them the necessary, like, skills to survive. But he rationalized it to himself of, like, as long as I emphasize training and make sure that, like, they have all of these skills, that coming down and seeing me wouldn't stop them from being proper borrowers. In fact, Soren knew I wouldn't stop his brothers from training, and initially he, like, laid some ground rules that I wasn't allowed to help them unless I had his permission. And then we even came up with, like, these training simulations where I was supposed to determine, like, whether or not, like, I spotted them while they were borrowing. Like, I, like, knew, like, they would be training, but I wasn't supposed to look hard, but, like, just enough. So I was supposed to, like, try and catch them at random points just to keep their skills sharp. So sometimes if they, like, accidentally, like, knocked something over, I would, go and pretend to investigate and see if, like, I could find them. From Soren's perspective, it ended up being a better borrowing experience, and a better experience, like to make him and all of them better borrowers. Because the boys were able to test their skills in a safe, controlled environment, since he knew I wouldn't hurt them if I actually caught them. It originally was my idea when Soren talked to me about it, about like seeing the boys again and how they missed me. So that actually made me feel really good. Soren, being his usual like stubborn self, initially was adamant, yeah, his brothers need to be, learn how to be proper borrowers before seeing me, but then we ended up compromising with this like set of rules, and whenever he laid all those ground rules about, you can't help them if they come down and ask for something, like they have to have my permission. And so like I suggested that we could help train them, and so develop these training simulations of like me going into the kitchen or like trying to be like tiptoe through the house and see if they could figure out like what room I was in, to like really hone in their listening skills. Honestly speaking, it was probably one of the main reasons Ray was able to react when Lily grabbed him. One of the trainings we did was like not locking up and freezing if the boys were grabbed. So, I mean, obviously I was like really careful, and like some of it was like whenever they were out in the open, so, reaching forward, like grabbing onto their pant legs, grabbing onto their legs or arms. And then like either like lifting them a few inches off of the table or whatever surface we were working with. Obviously like they were safe the entire time, and if it seemed like I was like pinching too hard, like the boys were like very vocal about like what was or was not okay. But anyway, yeah, they had these they didn't actually use pins on me. They didn't hurt me either. So as careful as I was being with them, they were being careful with me. They had these little like plastic nubs and ends of sometimes they were toothpicks, sometimes I actually ended up accidentally breaking one of my chopsticks on the very, very tip, so they were actually able to use that. And so they would use these pretend weapons and fight and try to get free. And so like figuring out where on the hand would be like good, where like would like your hand spasm, where would you most likely be able to like let go of something. And so a lot of Ray getting away, I think, was because we did put him into that scenario of being grabbed and dragged back, of not locking up and freezing. I definitely think that his training helped. On to the next. If I were to meet another human who else had borrower friends, what would I do? In a way, I kind of already have. I met Sam, and I already knew Eliza. I would be interested to see what other situation would actually bring this up, being that like borrowers are supposed to be, kept a secret. But I'd like to think we'd be able to talk about all of their adventures and things our little friends get into.
Really? Little?
What? You are, though. Don't give me that look. Fine. The things are hand-sized house guests.
That one's worse.
Oh, come on. That one was actually kind of clever.
Clever? Now you're just teasing me.
I thought you liked being teased. Yeah, I see that blush from here. Fine. Back to the questions. I'll deal with you later, mister. I'd like to think that we would be able to talk about borrowers openly. I'd also hope that it wouldn't be a life or death situation where someone is captured and I have to break the ice and address it first, like what happened with Hero. But, yeah, that was really scary for all of us. Yeah. Talk about adrenaline in the morning. But yeah, I'd like to think that if somebody were to approach me, I would be able to navigate that conversation. Next question. Would I reveal the secrets of the borrowers to save Soren's, Ray's, or Dorian's life? I mean, yeah, it goes without saying. If it saved their lives, I would definitely find a way to talk to someone about borrowers without directly saying they were borrowers. Ultimately, though, I would do what it took to protect them. They're my family. I mean, you protect your family. If Soren were in a life or death situation, would I be willing to kill? Ooh. Or just let them die? Ooh, that's a bit of a darker question. This goes back to, I guess, what I kind of talked about before. Soren, well, I mean, all of them, for that matter, are basically my life now. I'm not going to stand by and let something bad happen. I don't like the idea of taking someone's life, but you do whatever you can to protect your family. I mean, at that point, it's not necessarily a question. It's, you have to mentally prepare. I mean, I would do the same thing for my brother, even though we're a bit estranged at the moment. That, yeah, I definitely would do whatever it took to protect them, protect the secret overall. Especially, yeah, if it looked like they were going to be outed, if they were going to be revealed to the rest of humanity, because I don't think that everyone's ready for that. On both fronts, I don't think the borrowers would be ready, and as awesome as this community here is, I don't think that other people would be as okay with it. Their entire perception of reality would probably shatter. I think that is all that I have today. Yep, that's all that I have from all of you. If you have any other questions, be sure to put them in the comments down below. So, as Narrans says, cheers, and as always, stay awesome.